All right, folks, marketing is a very important part of what we do in this sport because without the cash, we don't get to go racing. And yes, I'm actually on time. I'm actually 5 minutes early, so we're going to keep up the trend here. It doesn't happen very often. So our great group of panelists, let me introduce them to you here. Jordan Bressler, he's the president and CEO of the Specialized Marketing Group, Inc., better known as TSMGI, because I can't say the other thing twice. TSMGI is a leader in the promotion and marketing of international sports of all kinds, and Jordan also has better lap times in the pool than at least one other person in this room, is what I understand. Jordan?
Tim, you're in trouble. Just by like 1/10 of a second. But you may have me beat. I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe we'll have a swim-off. I am an avid swimmer. Tim knows it. Tim and I actually race each other when we wind up in the pool about once or twice a year, and I kick his ass.
There you go. Our next guest from Speedway Motorsports, Jessica, is a classic example of why motorsports is so great because you can literally work your way up as far as your talent can take you. She started as an intern back at CMS in 1997 and now is a senior VP at Speedway Motorsports. Jessica, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Jessica Fickenshire with Speedway Motorsports. I've been there over 20 years. I currently, actually I got a promotion last week, so I'm the Chief Experience Officer now for Speedway Motorsports, so I handle anything that's really touching the fans, and I also oversee our capital projects, our food and beverage operations, our merchandising operations, and U.S. Legends cars. So thank you for having me today.
Fantastic. Our next guest has worn many hats in the automotive and motorcycle world, which seems fitting since he seems to wear quite a few hats at Moto America as well. He lives by the motto, don't just give people what they think they want, give them what they need and be authentic about it. From Moto America, Jeff Nassy.
Hey guys, I'm Jeff Nassy. I'm Senior Vice President at Moto America. Prior to that, I spent most of my life in automotive media, advertising, sales, digital. I was at the Motor Trend Group for a long time.
Our final guest on the panel here, go ahead.
I don't have any good swim laps, sorry.
Me neither, I sing. Yeah. All right, our final guest on the end here, Ruthie Culbertson, is such a regular at the Racetrack Business Conference. You might notice that she had a special plaque on the back of her chair when she, oh no, it's just a lie.
Are you hiding it, or I might be sitting on it?
Now the VP of Business Development with the Experiential Events Group, an organization whose racing DNA is direct from the Richard Petty Enterprises. Ruthie.
Yes, we are the agency formerly known as Richard Petty Enterprises. So every time I say Experiential Events Group or EAG, everybody looks at me like, what? So I'm here because I have several clients in the room. Good morning to all of you. By the way, I love the aversion to the front row. That is amazing. So big shout. Yes, you get a call. That's awesome. What we do is we do a lot of work for racetracks. We do a lot of, and by say that, I do a lot of introductions, having been in the sanctioned body industry for a very long time. I do a lot of introductions of newly formed sanctioned bodies being introduced to racetracks or potential new racetracks for racing. I do a lot of consulting for racetracks with regional marketing. I actually work for several racetracks with respect to executing all their, what I would call promotional programming, pre-race programming, post-race programming, some client services. Basically what we do is we're the extra set of hands. If you're a racetrack that's got 4 or 5 major events, but you really don't want to staff up for the entire season, I'm the kind of person that can come in and bring you an operations person, a hospitality manager, an entertainment programmer, or that just can drop in, work for 3 or 4 days, and buzz back out. So I'm just sort of a useful person to have around in terms of I need a couple of extra bodies, or do you know any racing series that want to expand, where they're going, or do you have any partners that, I need an oil category. Do you have any partners out there that you may or may not work with that want to expand, what their reach is? Because we do a lot for Dodge, FCA, Chrysler, IndyCar, NHRA, Mopar, NASCAR, SRO, IMSA, yeah, whatever, something like that. And I'm done, I swear, I'm finished.
All right. Here's how we're going to do it today. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, but I need questions from the audience as well. So After a little bit here, I'm going to ask you guys to raise your hands. I'll come around with one of the mics. I'm probably going to steal it from you because you're closest to me. Then you guys have to share, you know. But this is your show, so I want you guys to ask the questions that you want answered. But the question I have, and Jessica, I'm going to start with you, being at the racetrack. Is it possible to successfully have both in-house marketing people and an agency that works for you and do it well, or will they kind of clash and beat on each other?
I definitely think it's doable, and we've had success at some of our Speedway Motorsports facilities. You know, it takes really the racetrack from our standpoint to kind of lead the agency and have the agency kind of come and present different ideas, but the racetrack really is the one that kind of needs to take the lead on it. But we definitely have seen it work. Charlotte Motor Speedway, for example, is it's always busy, so we have a pretty robust marketing department there, so we kind of just have an internal one. But our other speedways that aren't quite as busy, it definitely helps. I think going back to what you say, you don't want to staff up if you don't have that many events a year. So if just from a financial standpoint too, it makes a lot of sense to lean on an agency.
Ruthie, how hard is it for a group like yours to interface with the track, or is it just something that comes pretty natural?
Well, in my case, it's a little bit more unusual in that I have been a racetrack before. I've been a promoter at several events. I did the Baltimore Grand Prix. You can all laugh about that. The NOLA Grand Prix, which was also kind of a hot mess. I'm really not giving myself a good resume here, but but the good news is I will tell you that we know what works, what doesn't work, what fails, what was some of those racetracks had amazing successes. You probably wouldn't know, but they actually did. So to your point, what's most effective from an agency standpoint is if you get good, clear direction from the racetrack as to where you are fitting in and where you don't need us. If we have a really good, clear direction on, okay, I want you to do A, B, C, and D, great. I've got no problem, plugging and playing and help you where we need to be. But our role is not to step on your toes or get into your way or clash with your staff. I mean, if we're working for your marketing staff, great, then your marketing staff has the lead. You tell us what you need, what works for you in the past. It's your market. You know what works. Like, again, Charlotte's marketing plan is very different from Texas's marketing plan. Bristol's marketing plan is very different from Las Vegas's marketing plan. We actually built, my agency built your mobile apps, your original, the round one for SMI, and it was fascinating for us because every single racetrack had completely different needs in what they were trying to communicate to their fans and their customers. So I think as long as the agency has a really good, clear perspective on what their role is, and even better, they're happy to live in it. That's the other part of the problem. Always look for an agency that either has experience doing it before, or knows what your business goals are, or has a real clear understanding of what they're doing. In terms of our operations staff, great. We plug in operations people. They have a clear direction. Here's what you're doing for the weekend, and you stay in your zone and report to that person, and you fit where you fit. And then the nice part about it is the goal is you always know if you've done it right if you get asked back. It's simple. I mean, we all know that your goals and objectives are simple. So if we can plug and play and be useful for you for 4 or 5 days and then get off your financial books, that's the right plan of attack.
Jeff, what is your experience in Moto America? I've been really impressed with the growth of Moto America, and you seem to really be connecting well with the fans. What is your experience as far as using agency versus in-house? What do you guys do? What's your strategy?
I got a perfect answer for that. And for those of you who don't know, Moto America is we're the Superbike Racing Series. We actually have 5 classes that we race at 10 road race tracks around the United States. I have several agencies that I use, and I look at it, there's 2 ways to do it. If you're going to completely go to an agency and say, this is who I am, help me, that's one thing. But what we do is very endemic. We're not like a typical local business that agencies handle. So you're going to probably most likely, in my recommendation, have internal people that are very endemic and knowledgeable to the sport that are going to frame out what work the agency needs to do and guide them in terms of messaging and that, because a complete outside agency isn't going to get the lingo that your customers understand and that you understand. You've already covered this very well. So again, have an internal person, somebody that's very passionate, that can frame where you need to go, sit down with your directives, and then go to that agency and assign them that. But as you said, make it very clear what they're going to handle and what they're not going to handle.
Jordan, what kind of services can an agency like yours bring to the table that a lot of treks might not be able to do as well on their own?
I think there's, well, a lot, and it just sounds like such an open answer, but Ruthie hit on something that's really key. It's experience in the space. I have seen so many, what I'll call bigger name agencies come into the space with a lack of knowledge of what motorsports is all about,
Well
a
said.
lack of understanding the
Oh
relationships
yeah,
that
watch
you
that
need
train wreck.
to work a garage, to work the track itself, and they fail. And with that, the sponsor fails too, and it's a very dangerous situation. So, as far as an agency like ours, what you bring to the space, it starts with knowledge, it starts with understanding, and then you sit down and really take the time to know what your clients need in order to be successful. As far as resources are concerned, anyone can bring resources, right? Anyone can bring bodies to the track to do a job, but doing the job well and understanding the space is the key.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I've always been a frustrated game show host, so I'm going to throw out a toss-up question. There's no money involved, but whoever wants to take the lead on this one, have the needs of sponsors and the types of activations that they expect from their money, has that changed a lot over the last 5 to 10 years, would you say?
I think it has. Everybody's trying to reach this newer market, the younger kids, the millennials. So I think from a digital social media standpoint, we've seen it change a lot. Our midways and our fan zones used to be jam-packed. They're not anymore. People are activating and spending their money in different ways. So I definitely think that's changed.
The idea of a sponsor just writing a check and saying, put a sign up in turn 2, versus what do I get for the money that I'm investing and how do I make it work successfully? And more importantly, I think the key word is ROI, right? Everybody wants to know what their ROI is, and they want to know that before they write the check, as opposed to worrying about it after.
Makes a lot of sense. Jeff?
Digital social is obviously huge. That was the buzzword years ago. Now it's super common. The next one is really content integration. So your sponsor, if there's some way that you can integrate them into the content that you're producing, and whether that's the broadcast of your event, or whether that's that's flybys of their booth on TV coverage, or that's integrating into the PA announcements or some type of activation like that, that's becoming very commonplace now. It's not a plus anymore.
I think kind of what everybody has already pointed out, people are consuming products differently in this era. There's so much, you can in your face in terms of screens. You don't actually physically have to be there to be able to consume it. Or they're just the opposite. They want complete hands-on touch, smell, in your face, experiential. And what we're finding is that there's kind of a bit of seems to be a weird drop-off. You're either half your crowd or your attendance is, I call them 55 to dead, which I'm closely approaching, so I can say that. And then there's the drop off to millennials. So there's this wide gray area range of that middle market that nobody seems to be focusing on, which I find interesting because that seems to be a lot of where your diehards are, or where at least a lot of your repeat customers are. So when we do experiential activation, it's interesting to find out what your customers really want. In the case of Dodge, we laugh because Dodge is not about how many people they get through or throughput. Their sole goal is they just want the experience. All they want is get in the car, strap in, go fast, smell the smoke, smell the brakes. So, and then we've got other customers that are as much throughput as possible. So I think a lot of it depends on, the way we consume products are very different, and I also think the way we are now executing activation is very different because everybody's goals have completely changed.
Do we need, go ahead.
A couple points before I forget. On the millennials, it's such a key word right now. Everybody talks about it. If you read the trade pubs and advertising, people are talking about how hard it is to get to them. If you have an audience, as you said, that's older and gray, remember, that's where the money is, and your customers are going to know that too. The guys that are buying, toy haulers and trucks and all these type of things that that your sponsors sell out there, those are the guys that are writing, the guys and gals that are writing the checks. And one other thing before I forget, I had a red eye, so I know I'm going to forget a lot of my great ideas. Okay. One of the key things you need to do is you're looking for sponsors and you're building your deck and your offerings to go out to people is remember, don't sell what's on the track. That's just the magnet that brings the people there. What you really need to sell is what's in the parking lot and what your customers do with their money. That's the most important thing. I spent a lot of time in the magazine business, and we had this this epiphany one day, and we were presenting to Dodge, actually, their agency, and our presentation had pictures of all the cars in the magazines and all this stuff, 57 Chevys and Land Cruisers and all these neat things, and I thought, what are we doing? This is terrible. This isn't what the client's buying. What the client's buying is what our readers do with their disposable income. And so from that point forward, we took photography of the parking lots at all our events, and it was an astounding effect. Then we went into Dodge and said, look, this isn't about a 1,000 horsepower 57 Chevy. Here's the parking lot at one of our events. This is what they drive. This is what is in the back. They have trailers, they have toy haulers and all that. That's what you need to sell people. That's where the value is.
Has anybody found anything that's actually stuck with millennials? It's kind of like throwing Jell-O at a wall. It's true. It's the hardest target market to actually land something that actually sticks. Have you seen it? Have you seen anything stuck?
Letting them bring in free alcohol. Yeah. I'm serious. Like, that's kind of our big play. One of the only industries in the world that you can still bring your own cooler and drinks and food, and you don't have to go spend $15 for a beer. So we kind of push that a lot.
And a social scene. Nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. And when people see that there's going to be other people that they want to hang out with there, they're going to want to come and hang out.
Has anybody actually been to the Snake Pit at Indianapolis? Has anybody seen it in action? I don't recommend it actually walking in. I recommend walking like 2 feet into the perimeter, looking around, and then running. But if you really want to see like a key millennial activation, they sell out every single year. I want to say it's 30,000 tickets. They have absolutely no idea there are cars on track. I mean, not a clue. They can't hear them, they can't see them, they don't pay attention. It's literally an event within an event, and that actually has proven to be a significant success for them. But
You have all your shots in order when you do that.
yeah, and duck. Just go low, stay low, breeze in and breeze out.
All right. Before I throw it out to the crowd, Jordan, how important is it to integrate all your different avenues of reaching the consumer to really sell the sponsor's message? And by that I mean, not like you mentioned, not just, it was mentioned up on the stage, don't just throw a billboard. We've got the digital side of things. We've got, signage that can be provided, with digital billboards from companies like Watchfire. I got to brag about my hometown as much as I can. Your online appearance, the broadcast. How important is it to integrate all those different areas to make sure that sponsor's message is heard?
That's a layup question in my mind. It all needs to be tied together. You need to have all of your teams on the same page with any message that you're trying to get across. From a corporate perspective or from a racetrack perspective, it's the same thing. Social needs to be working with digital. Digital needs to be working with print. And your messaging needs to be aligned across the board, even in all your brand activation and the work that you do.
Jessica, how tough is that to accomplish, though, in the real world at a speedway?
Oh, it's definitely a challenge. The racetracks, we want to sell tickets. Coke wants to sell Coke. So how do you make that work together? So you have to have a true partnership with your sponsors. You have to have a little give and take, and you just kind of have to, from the ground up, once the partnership kind of starts, just be in constant contact with each other. I'll bring up Coke again because they're probably one of our longest time sponsors, but they're kind of with us every step of the way when we're marketing our races, and they're part of that planning process, so we can take what their initiatives and what their goals are and try to wrap them into what our goals are, and again, at the end of the day, sell tickets and have people come to the track. So.
Fantastic. I'm going to throw it out to Jeff. I'm going to steal this mic now, because if you guys have questions in the audience, raise the hands high so I can see them, and I'll bring you the mic here while Jeff is answering and Ruthie is answering. Jeff, how does that strategy work of making sure you integrate work on the series level for a company like Moto America?
Well, it's a given. It all starts with questions first. Never go in and present something to a potential sponsor. You have to listen to what they say. It's ABC. It sounds very fundamental, but it's true, and a lot of people forget that, because if you're trying to sell somebody something that you want to sell them, it's not as good as what they're really seeking. So if it's activation or it's branding, or even if it's a sponsor and they have an awareness problem, they're a local business in the community and they have an awareness problem, ask them that and say, look, is there something about your business that people think that they shouldn't think. How can I help change that message for you? Really key.
And Ruthie, I would think an organization like yours can really help connect those dots, especially for smaller organizations.
Yeah, that's kind of our goal is to we're a facilitator, basically. That's what most agencies are. But I think everybody's already kind of answered the great question. And I will be a classic person that will say, as you all can tell, I'm very overly enthusiastic. Sometimes you really have to step back and simplify it. The best message is the simple one. And to Jordan's point, you need to layer it through absolutely everything. So every group you have working on a specific sponsorship or activation or message, albeit right down to operations, marketing, social, just keep it consistent and keep the message basic. It's very easy to get carried away and think, ooh, look at all the million things we could do. I always say, okay, stop, back the truck up about 4 steps, and then think about what your core message is. And then as long as you keep it simple and you keep it in your face and you keep it layered, people are more likely to grasp it and take it away with them, rather than if you bury it in 9 million kind of different ways to activate it. Sometimes you'll scramble your message a little bit. It's not as clear. It may seem blatant to you. You may think this is too far in your face and it's too basic, but a lot of times, I mean, we all know it, simple works.
Especially when you're talking to millennials.
There you go.
Beer.
Question from the crowd.
This is a question for Jeff.
Introduce yourself, please, and where you're
Okay.
from before you ask your question.
I'm Mike Hargrave from Charlotte, North Carolina. Jeff, I have a question for you. You recently moved this past season to more established media partners in NBC and Fox. How important was that move for Moto America in your future?
That was absolutely crucial. Thank you for the tee up to promote our series. You know, the scale we had with BN Sports was great. It was what it was. But when we moved to NBC and FS2, it was just the name alone was fantastic. I mean, the additional reach is great. You know, the numbers, the Nielsen's, and all that. But the door opening power of those two brands was really important. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So it's, you know, there's the tangible part of it, and then there's the abstract part of it, and they're both equally important.
All right, introduce yourself, who you're with, and then your question.
Good morning, John Myers, M1 Concourse, Pontiac, Michigan. You briefly, the whole panel discussed about millennials and how the industry is changing. What would you recommend as we move into this era of no television or radio, everything streaming, podcasts? What would you recommend as far as the future of trying to interact with the younger generation as far as marketing?
Well, I can tell you, you better be on all the platforms out there. You know, I mean, we have streaming, but we're also on YouTube and social out there because we've still got to capture people. I mean, selfishly, I'd love to have everybody on streaming and watching our television networks and the streaming side. I'd be able to capture all that subscription revenue, but you have to be out there to conquest and bring people in. So you got to be where they are. And YouTube is fantastic. You got to have some type of content on there. Facebook isn't so much of a although they want to be, it's not so much of a platform where people will sit down and watch an entire racing event, but it's great for snagging people and directing them back to you. And then you can let people watch where they wish. You know, you'll find that most people are more comfortable watching racing events on YouTube than Facebook. But you got to be all over the place.
How many of you have millennial children? So do you use them as case studies? Because honestly, I do. Like I mean, I have millennial kids, and there's no secret sauce, right? I think what you said is spot on. The answer is you got to be all over. One day I'll sit with my kids and watch a race on TV. They are old souls. They like watching it, you know, right on the screen. But maybe the following week they're out doing something else, and I'll get a text message about what they saw on Twitter or that they were streaming it. So you got to be thinking about all the different platforms and really pay attention to what your key objectives are, and then hit on it.
One thing I will also recommend too, kind of, we're all saying the same thing, but if you are not already doing digital advertising, you really need to be, especially if you're a smaller track with a more specialized events. The fact that you can actually geo-target and target a demographic for a very reasonable price. In most cases, digital advertising is very reasonable. I mean, if you're not doing Google AdWords or pay-per-click, you really need to start looking into that and thinking about it, because it's a very cost-effective way of being actually able to say, I want to target this age group living within a 4-mile radius around my facility. And then when they're trolling their social media or Google, et cetera, they're getting hits and they're getting your content.
I got a great addition to that. There's something called geofencing as well,
yeah.
where you can
Good
go
call.
to your track and you can fence in that area and capture all the people that come through there on their mobile phones. Basically, if your phone opens, it's going to ping an ad server and they're able to track people. So you can go to a sponsor and say, look, I want to sell, and again, this is both the effort and then the tangible benefits of this, right? I want to sell you this full effect. People are going to come to the event. They're going to see the track signs. They're going to see your activation in the booth and all that. But I'm also going to track all of those people digitally, and I will help follow them up with ads after that event. So they're going to come. They're going to see your activation. They're going to see all the track signage and everything. And then in the following weeks, I'll hit them with X number of ad impressions that have either your ad creative or some combination thereof. So you look at that, a sponsor hears that and thinks, and just at the top, they're like, that's pretty innovative. Here's somebody that really gives a damn about what they're selling me. It's not just a billboard up there that is very tough to track.
Yeah, and if you have a mobile app, don't let it sit stagnant. I mean, come up with push notifications, come up with content, just kind of continually keep it refreshed.
Jessica, I do a lot of work with the Danville Dashers Hockey Club, and it's very important for us to reach that younger market, which is our weaker market, by having someone of that age group pushing the social media. Is that something that you found successful at Speedway Motorsports tracks as well?
We have, and actually we are getting ready to partner, this is Charlotte Motor Speedway specific, with UNC in Chapel Hill with their marketing department, and we kind of give them some challenges we have, and how do we get college kids to come to the race? How do we get younger kids to come to the race? And they work on that all semester for us, and they come back and present their findings. So, partner with local schools. Interns are great. Always, we have our intern group that we kind of throw things at, and how you going to get your friends to come to the race, and they always have a lot of good feedback. So I would just kind of recommend hitting, again, people who have kids, use them as case studies. My kids are a little bit younger, 14, but everything that they do right now is on YouTube, and it's crazy. They don't watch TV. Everything's on YouTube. So it'll be interesting to see what, how they're consuming things in 4 to 5 years from now. But yeah, I'm constantly watching what my kids are doing, what interns are doing, and again, the UNC program has been really successful for us.
I can get people to respond to my messages that I push out on YouTube or on Facebook and Twitter, because I understand those audiences. I am lousy at Instagram. That's an area where I need more help, and I need to get help from a younger person to really understand that, or the other myriad of social media platforms. But they really do make it easy for you to do a push to a lot of different platforms at once. Jeff?
Remember the acronym FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out. That's something that millennials really react to. So in your messaging, when you're talking about an event coming up, even the imagery of it, if you're going to have a social gathering there and there are people there, those millennials really react to that. They don't want to miss out of something that potentially is popular that their friends are going to. It's a very key term.
There's 2 or 3 tracks out there that have actually developed a social media program where they've reached out within a 4-hour radius and identified the most followed Twitter handles. And then what they've done is they've kind of created a behind-the-scenes, backstage social media influencer program. So they'll invite 10 to 20 people out that have significant followings, and they get a special package. They get behind-the-scenes access. They get tickets. They get credentials. They get walkthroughs. And then their job that whole weekend is they get all this access free in turn for pushing out piles and piles and piles of content. To your point, fear of missing out. So they may not sell tickets for that event, but they've got you ahead of your ticket sales for the following year because everybody thinks, ooh, I missed out on a great weekend. So that actually has proved successful at 3 or 4 different racetracks for events.
Very cool. Question right over here.
Hello, my name is Michael Kitchens. I'm with Circuit Hawaii. We are a geographically separated place. We're in the middle of the Pacific. What advice would you have for reaching out to the outer markets for us? I know tourism is a big thing with us, but we're looking at the motorsports community. What advice or suggestions could you give to try and bring people to where we're at?
Travel partners.
Great question.
Do you have travel partners?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Boy, you are landlocked. You are locked, aren't you? Wow. You're a tough one. Travel partners, I think, would be key. If you can work with there's a lot of different groups out there that sell packages, sell destinations, destination management, basically. Get 2 tickets, credentials, hotel, flights, airfare, things like that. Working with maybe some of those larger agencies that do destination management. might help you. What is your local crowd like?
We have a large automotive enthusiast community. We have a lot of drag racers. We have a pretty good mix. We're a good cultural melting pot as well. I think our concern is we're going to be trying to reach out to the international and national marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii. Hawaii sells itself. But we have a market specifically, which is motorsports, entertainment, driving, those types of experiences. Just wondering if there's something, key to that beyond just the tourism market. How do you reach out to somebody who enjoys racing but lives somewhere else, way across, and interest them in coming over? Is it the event? The event you're holding?
Well, it's not too hard to find racing fans. You can find them digitally and socially. You can find them targeting on social, and you can find them on forums even, and digitally. And if you can probably go in there and find those that travel, add that as another identifier as you're targeting them. So and you might want to do some research, again, path to purchase, find out where the people that come to Hawaii, where are they predominantly coming from, and focus on that. If Washington at a particular season is a huge state for travelers to Hawaii, then go target automotive enthusiasts and racing enthusiasts in Washington if you want to get really efficient. It's sort of I thought I said path to purchase earlier. It's super, super important. A lot of people forget if you're selling something. I sat on a panel before talking to a bunch of parts manufacturers, and I was amazed at how many had never really sat down and thought about their customers' path to purchase. What's the gestation time? Where do they go? What are the levers they hit all the way down? So for you need to think about, you almost need to pre-think about, hey, these people that are going to come to this, where are they going? What are they doing right now? But if you know that they travel from a particular area and that they're motorsports enthusiasts, you can just market there.
I would think since you are a prime tourist destination, I would use like your local CVB to see what kind of data you can get out of them in terms of who your travelers are, and see if they can even, to his point, drill it down to even automotive, people that are automotive enthusiasts. And then again, digital media strategy, digital advertising, target whatever that particular area is and what that demographic is, and just beat them to death with digital media and pay-per-click.
And I believe those people that are coming, they're going to have their plan already, so I wouldn't be marketing to people when they land, like the little flyers they do. They've already got their plans when they land there.
Kind of an offshoot question, Jessica, for you. One thing I've noticed at major events within NASCAR now, and I don't know if it's travel costs, the fact that local communities jacked up the hotel prices and really put the NASCAR tracks in a world of hurt, but looking at some of the tracks, it seems like more and more of your sales are coming within a day trip range now. Is that being a trend that really is happening at your tracks?
It definitely is. I'd say maybe 10, 15 years ago, our average fan traveled 300 miles one way. That's completely changed now. So we're pulling in from markets that are more of 100 miles away, that they can make it in a day. Our camping's still really strong, so people are still coming in and they're camping and they're making a long weekend out of it or a vacation out of it. But the folks coming and doing the 3-night minimum, paying $500 a night, when last week it was $69 a night, it's those are definitely going away. And we've really focused, again, doing our research and seeing where our fans are coming from, where people are looking at motorsports, and kind of focusing on those key areas and within a 100-mile radius of each track. So, Kentucky, focusing a lot in Cincinnati and Louisville, Charlotte, Greenville, Greensboro, Raleigh. So our marketing has kind of changed a lot to focus on those markets.
And Jordan, how does that affect a sponsor buy that a major event would be looking at? Are sponsors really interested in that local fan and a wider margin? Where does that affect the marketing? That they're not being as wide of an audience as possible?
No, it really doesn't, because the objective is still the same, right? If a sponsor's involved in the sport and they're involved in the sport to attract that customer, it doesn't matter where they're coming from. If they're doing activation and they're trying to promote their brand to them before the start of the race, that's one thing. They're still talking to that customer, right? If they are sponsoring a car, that certainly doesn't change the perspective. If they have signage, it doesn't change the perspective. So my opinion is there is not really a change from where they're coming from a dollar and cents perspective.
Right down here.
Hi. Hi, my name is Erwin Gieskes. I'm from MyLab Sports Timing. How do you still value physical booklets at events?
Not much, at least from my perspective. Everything we do with respect to activation and even planning, marketing, right down to even operations and logistics is, I think, two things: convenience and instant gratification. And a convenience is not carrying something around. Most people have strayed away from it. Your phone is everything. So if you can find a way to get as much content to somebody's phone or something that provides them with convenience, even from a race team perspective, the days of media kits are gone. It's either a stick or it's a digital download off of a website, or everybody's just kind of phasing away from paper. It's too difficult to carry around, and frankly, it doesn't hold their attention. I mean, I laugh because I just went on vacation not too long ago, and I was giggling the entire time I was on vacation. The entire town was FaceTiming. It was incredible. People just walking around with their phones. So the more content you can push to somebody's phone, let's face it, how many hours? Do you ever get your screen reports? Your screen time reports? Are you mortified by that? But that's a classic indicator of where you should be marketing and where your content needs to be. It's embarrassing, but it's so true. That's where everything needs to be.
We get a lot of requests for that when fans come in the gate, so we've just downsized it. We don't see people looking through the 20-page program anymore. In fact, personally, I've bought a ton of programs over the years. All the races I've gone to, never even open them, right? But if you make it simple, it fits in their pocket. Like we do these nice folding postcards or a single sheet postcard that's got the event schedule on it and some other interesting things like that. Works great. People love it. You can put sponsor logos on it and that too, and a coupon activation for a sponsor, something like that. You should be doing the app already. This is just, you got a lot of people that are coming in, and a lot of people still ask for that. And it's another distribution piece, a deliverable on your sponsorship too. You can say we hand these out at the gate. We just don't leave them for people to come find. Everybody that comes in their car gets one of those things.
Well, and if it's digital, you can track who's seeing it. So when you're selling it, when you're turning around trying to sell a logo on something, you've got actual numbers, concrete numbers on who's opening it, who's looking at it, how many eyeballs are actually getting.
Final audience question right here.
Good morning. Steve Soares, Pearson Wireless, Las Vegas. With social media, fan engagement, and applications that you guys are all talking about, what are you seeing the acceptance in the tracks, investing in the infrastructure required to support everything you're talking about?
We've invested a lot. We have a DAS system. I'm talking tens of millions of dollars to be able to support all the fans coming in and then being able to use their cell phones. And in a few years, I wouldn't be surprised if it's mandated for certain tracks, depending on what level of racing they have, that you have to have a certain amount of bandwidth. So it's expensive. Like I said, we've spent tens of millions of dollars just in our DAS system, and you really not much else to say.
I think a lot of it depends on what size of a track you are.
Yeah.
If you've got 4 or 5 major events per season, then yes, you should have everything we've already talked about tonight, and you already have your marketing plans in place for next year, and we're not telling you anything you don't already know. But if you're a club course M1, and your goals and objectives are very different, and your clientele is very different, and your events are very different, then you might want to have a completely different strategy. You may not need to invest as much money in your infrastructure if what you're doing is more of track rentals or smaller custom events or things like that. So I think it really depends. I mean, if you're not looking at massive event infrastructure, then can you save your money? Yeah, and you can put it into different resources. But if you are significant, an SMI, for sure, yeah, you've already got all those assets.
Yeah, let's be honest. If you're not going to have not that many people download apps now, and conversely, or really subsequently, the mobile experience on browsers now is so good. There's some websites that are designed so well, you almost think you're on an app. But before you go jump into that buzzword, I got to have an app for my track and everything, and that you got to let's be completely honest to yourself. How many people are going to really download that thing? Just make sure that if they go to the website, there's a mobile version that greets them, and it's easy for them to navigate. In most cases, that's gonna serve your needs, because you certainly don't want to go sell a bunch of app deliverables to a sponsor and then find out 800 people download it over a season.
And you can actually build sort of a phony app an app that people can download, and its only purpose is sending them direct to your website, or in our case, I sent them direct to an internet radio station output. So you can use an app and have an app that just is the purpose of sending them to your mobile version of your website. Last question that I'm going to throw out there, and it's again a toss-up question. Do sponsors care as much about exclusivity anymore than they used to?
I haven't seen a big change personally, but the way I look at exclusivity, you better get top dollar if you do that. You know, in fact, a lot of times people will ask for that, and if you tell them no, it's okay. But if you do say yes and you sell your soul out to them, you got to make sure, because you're eclipsing all that other revenue you could have got from other people, so you better ask for top dollar.
Yeah, if they're paying for it, then yes, exclusivity is very important. And there are still some clients out there that do want to pay for it, especially in the automotive industry. A lot of the large manufacturers, I mean, they're happy to pay for exclusivity. But for most of kind of the middle tier partners, I haven't seen a lot of them that weren't happy to kind of work in the space with everybody else. In fact, a lot of them like to have their competitors come in to see if they can woo other business away. So that's what we're seeing a lot of is phone partners. It's okay if Verizon's on site. Hey, feel free to sell a booth to Sprint and let's see what we can do. It's always good about wooing other people away.
I have one final tip. Are you done? I got one.
No, go for it.
I'm a sales and marketing guy at heart, so I got to say this. You know,
we'll run as late as you want to.
Okay.
Just keep going.
This is one of the greatest tips I've ever heard. I read it out of I just happened to come across it in an ad agency magazine or something like that, and it was the head of WPP, some huge agency. They asked him what was the greatest tip you ever heard in business, and he said, when I go to meet with people, I always find out what they fear the most. Hopefully, I know that before I go to meet somebody, but if not, I'm finding out while I meet them. So almost everybody in this room is thinking about revenue and sponsors and everything, and you're going to be calling people and meeting people and presenting to them and all that. So do your best to know what those people fear the most when you sit down with them. So if it's a local dealership, what bothers them the most? If you can't find out before from just some intellectual thought yourself, then definitely find out when you're talking to that person, because that's one of the greatest things you need to go sell them. If there's a new dealership coming in north and they're worried about some customers leaving there, then you need to come up with some deliverables and some type of activation that'll make that person feel better. And now you've really got somebody that's engaged with what you're selling them.
Has to be more than just throwing a sheet in front of somebody and saying, here's what it costs. You have to understand their business in order to sell them on how you're going to help them. It has to be an investment, not a cost center to them.
And understanding their business is understanding their fears, which everybody has, just like you guys do.
I think the first thing you have to do is walk into that meeting not with a prepared presentation per se, but more of a Q&A, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's the first time meeting the person. We do that with the corporate clients that we work with. It's really understanding what their needs are and trying to figure out how to build a program that works best for them.
Very good. Okay. Go ahead, Ruthie.
Just to add to that too, if you think you have nothing to sell them, go away for a day. Trust me, you will find something. I mean, it's true. I mean, if you sit down and listen to what they tell you, and they're looking for something specific, and you think, well, I have no deliverables that I can offer for that, just walk away from it and think about all your other partners and everything else that you do. Trust me, you'll have something that you can activate with.
I had a radio station client that told me the reason they didn't want to go with our radio station is because our demo trend's a little older, and he doesn't get any customers in that age group right now. And I told him that's because you're not advertising to them. You're advertising on the rock station and the country station where they may not be listening, or the ones that are listening are not the ones with the money, as you said, of chasing you got to go market to the money. Okay, it's time for the big wrap up. So we're going to start out with Jordan. Final thoughts.
Okay. The territory that we're talking about is a complicated territory, right? To some extent, each one of you is individually competing against each other for the same dollars. Whether you're a local track or a big track like SMI or now NASCAR or ISC, you're all competing against each other for the same money. And I think the trick is be smart about it, listen, take the time to understand what your sponsors need, and then activate the shit out of it. But know how to measure it and know what's important to them in the end and what the metrics really are. Because if you don't do that, then the next year your discussion is going to be a lot harder.
Jessica.
Final thoughts. Another successful thing for us that we've done that I think a lot of racetracks could do is B2B opportunities. Somebody might not always have a big check, but if you could put them in touch with another sponsor of yours and they could, buy off of each other, they're most likely going to come back and want to sponsor a race or an event or buy tickets. But we find a lot of success by putting our sponsors in connection with other sponsors to help their business. So I would suggest finding opportunities to help, make those connections.
Jeff.
Focus on what you can sell, what you have to sell to people. Great example, we're a motorcycle racing series. I'm chasing down all the light truck manufacturers and accessory manufacturers and tire manufacturers for that. So just sit back, go have a beer somewhere and sit down and think about what you really have to sell to your sponsors. It's not racing, it's not excitement, it's not the track, it's what your fans are doing with their money.
Ruthie.
From an agency perspective, I would just say, and I know this sounds really, really basic, but if you're going to go with an agency partner, go with somebody that you connect with. Don't go with an agency that everybody tells you need to hire. If you don't gel with them and you're not getting your point across and they're not listening to you, again, this sounds so basic, but I've seen it happen so many times. Don't hire somebody just because they've got a wide reputation in the space. Make sure that you get along, because if they're invested in your goals and objectives, then they're going to work better with your staff, better with your team, better with your partners, and they're going to take more time to listen to you and pay attention to what your objectives and goals are, and then how they can not only help you within maybe the marketing or the agency space, but how they can make other relationships for you, how they can reach out to some of their other vendors and connect you to some of their clients to your clients and see if they can expand all the way across all of their business platforms, because we all want to make money, right? So I know that sounds basic, but just make sure if you're going to hire a partner, make sure they've got a good reputation, they've got experience in the space, and they understand what you need and what your goals are.
Fantastic.
And they're willing to play within them. That's the other one.
Fantastic. Now, I know we had more questions than we had time for. This is where the show never ends, folks. Reach out to these experts by email. Same with all of our panelists all day. Reach out to them. They will interact with you. They will get back to you, and they will answer your questions one-on-one. But then also share it with me, share it with Tim, so we can share it with the class. Because the whole idea of the Racetrack Business Conference, yes, in a lot of ways we're all competing against each other for the same dollars. But the better the industry works together and the better the industry takes good care of client A, that client B will notice, and they'll spend their money in this space as well. What did we learn today? We learned a lot, and I knew we would with this panel. Agencies and in-house can live together and work and produce very well together, but you need an agency that understands your needs as a racetrack or a series, and they better be experienced in your type of racing and your type of customer. Don't just chase the hip young group with all of your content. Follow those that have the money. That's great advice. And very simply, nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. If you make yourself look like the big deal, it's the old Roy Clark attitude of you have fun, everybody's going to have fun, and they're going to want to come back to your concerts. Same thing with your racetracks. If you make the show an event, you'll not only get those fans to come back, but word of mouth will get you more customers in the end. A big hand for our marketing group.